Hello again and welcome to the long-awaited playthrough of Mega Man Xtreme 2 for the Game Boy Color. Long-awaited by me at least, I don't know about you guys, but I've been dying to commentate over this game. Xtreme 2 is a way better game than Xtreme 1. Xtreme 1 just felt like an attempt to port some of the SNES stages to the Game Boy Color, and it wound up being extremely boring as a result. But Xtreme 2 is actually pretty good. It's got new gameplay mechanics, there's 2 playable characters. I think this is the first time Zero was playable. X4 might have been out before then, but whatever. And we have an actual plot. Okay, actually that's more of a detriment, because Mega Man plots are always just kind of an excuse to blow things up. You don't really need much more than that, and even on Extreme mode, you can't skip the cutscenes in Extreme 2, whereas they were skippable in Extreme 1. They didn't even play the cutscenes in Extreme mode for Extreme 1. Anyways, as you can see, Zero is now playable. He functions a lot like he does in X4 and the other PlayStation games. Saber gameplay, defeating bosses with him unlocks skills instead of new weapons with ammo counts, although one of his weapons does have an ammo count. Anyways, this stage might look similar to the X2 intro stage, but the stages in Extreme 2 actually do deviate from their SNES counterparts quite often. Often enough that I actually ask the question of why don't they just make new stages, new bosses, and new music if they're very much capable of doing their own thing when just porting something from the SNES version would not be a good idea. But anyways, I chose Zero for this stage. There's a path split in this stage depending on what character you picked. And Zero handles this boss a lot easier than X does, or at least a lot quicker, because Zero's attack power is much higher than X's at the start. In exchange for the Saber having a very small hitbox, it's very difficult to hit some of the fast-moving enemies with this thing, and not get hit yourself. But we can deal with it. I'm going to be using Zero a lot for the first half of Extreme mode in this game. This boss is absolutely nothing, by the way, but it's nice that they sprited a new boss, even though it's completely worthless. Like, did you see that? You could probably stop it from moving completely. So while this cutscene goes on, and it goes on for a while, unfortunately, I'm going to explain how the difficulty selection in this game works compared to Extreme 1. Extreme 1 had normal mode, which was 4 bosses and then the fortress stages, and then hard mode, which was 4 different bosses and then the fortress stages again. This time around there are 8 bosses that have been divided into 2 character stories, so X will face 4 of the bosses while Zero takes out the other 4. The idea being that they have to beat all 8 Mavericks, but they have split up so they can cover more ground. Which is an interesting narrative idea, but I still question the idea of just not making it an 8-boss game where you can switch between the 2 characters. And in Extreme mode, that's exactly what this is. You can play through the 8 bosses in any order you choose, and you're free to switch between the 2 characters at any time, even during gameplay, so it's kind of like X7 or X8 with a character switch system. In addition, as they are explaining in this cutscene, there is a new item that the enemies drop in addition to weapon and life energy. It is called a DNA soul, and yes, I wish it was called something other than that, but that's what it's called. It had to be a DNA soul for some reason, which reminds me of the Nightmare Souls from X6. They unlock power-up parts. There is now a shop where you can pay DNA souls to get new power-up parts, which are like the X5 and X6 parts. You can equip them in addition to whatever armors you pick up whenever you want. Now, it seems that the parts unlock based on how many total souls you've collected, and I'm not sure if that includes unspent souls, but I'll just save up 800 souls for the parts I want to unlock anyways, and then spend all my souls then and there. So we're starting off with Tunnel RHINO, just like in the X3 playthrough, go figure. And this stage can be a little bit annoying because of how much damage the giant boulders do to you, and playing through it with Zero is a little bit difficult, but he can actually shove the boulders with his saber, which is a little strange. One would think he would cut through them, and I did not see that boulder coming, or that one. That was very annoying. But there's a life energy pickup there, so that's nice. Also, any DNA souls you pick up also count as life pickups, so it's not like you're desperately fishing for life pickups, and you're not getting them because the game keeps giving you souls. The souls do recover your health as well. I'll be using Zero for most of the first 4 stages simply because they are the stages that appear in his mode. They were designed with him in mind, but it's nice to be able to switch to X so that Zero doesn't have to risk taking any more damage than necessary, because if one of your characters loses a life, they both count as having lost a life. Kind of annoying, but that's okay, really. So we have Ride Armor now. Ride Armor functions just like the X2 Ride Armor, which means this is the second time we've seen it in a GBC game. That's fine, I wouldn't want to have to deal with the X3 armors again. and that was the first heart tank. Unfortunately, like in X5 and X6, heart tanks only apply to the character that picked it up, so be careful who you pick it up with if you're playing Extreme Mode. And speaking of Extreme Mode, there's something else that's also annoying about it. The weapons that you get from the bosses are only given to the character that killed them, meaning that if X gets the last hit on a boss, then Zero does not get a weapon from that boss. That's pretty annoying, because if Zero does not get his weapon from Tunnel RHINO, for example, that actually locks you out of obtaining certain armor pieces. And, you know, that's really annoying. One would think they would have double-checked that, but I suppose if you have to play through the game 2 times with the individual character modes before going on to Extreme Mode, then I suppose, you know, you would have figured that out by now. But actually, it's possible, if you grind enough DNA souls, to unlock the extra modes, such as Extreme Mode and the all-new Boss Attack mode, without having to actually earn them. You just grind up enough souls and they're there in the shop. Anyways, what you're seeing right now is the first stage gimmick that was not in an SNES game. It is simple rising lava, and it does not kill you instantly, so I actually like it as a gimmick. Unfortunately, not all gimmicks in Extreme 2 are created equal. Some of them are very, very annoying. Yeah, Extreme 2, I may consider it a fine follow-up to Extreme 1, and a pretty decent game overall, but it is not flawless. I mean, no game is flawless, but Extreme 2, there are some pretty glaring flaws. Anyways, we're up to the boss. Tunnel RHINO is much like his SNES counterpart, although he's significantly more orange. Thanks, color palette limits. For some reason, Chill Penguin got around that, but the bosses in this game really don't. So he's a lot like the SNES version of Tunnel RHINO, but you might notice that I am refraining from dashing very much at all, unless I'm Zero. The thing is, because they needed to delegate an entire button to character switching, and yes, I did lose a life to Tunnel RHINO, by the way. I'm going to cry in the corner later. So they had to delegate an entire button to character switching and another button to pausing. So unfortunately, you lose the option to dash by pushing the start button. You now have to either double tap, which means you can't dash off the walls anymore, or you can air dash, which you can now do by pressing the jump button while in air if your character has air dashing unlocked. And Zero has that from the start, so he's actually a much better character to play in the stages before X gets his air dash. So yeah, that's annoying for Tunnel RHINO. I'm actually going to have to tank a lot of hits from him before I switch to Zero to finish him off. Fortunately, I think he was taking quite a lot of damage from the X-Buster. I don't even have any power-up parts yet, so I have no idea what was up with that. Anyways, every boss kill gets you 200 souls in addition to the weapon. And the weapon for Zero is an attack that causes him to do a downward slash with a drill saber of some kind. Very interesting. And as you can imagine, it crushes certain blocks, which allows us access into certain areas of Blast Hornet stage, which we'll be going on to next. You know, now that I think about it, I'm actually not sure if X's weapon that he gets from Tunnel RHINO would also blow through the walls in this stage that Zero's version is allowed to blow through. But I'll just get Zero's weapon for safety and continue onwards. This stage is very much made for Zero. It's got a lot of aerial sections, which means a lot of air dashing. And air dashing is so much easier compared to double tap dashing, which, you know, I still have no idea why they thought double tap dash was a good idea. It's so easy to accidentally do it, and I think I've done it a couple of times in this game as well. Anyways, going to be a bit of sequence breaking here of a sort. You can actually take a shortcut through the stage with a very slick jumping maneuver, which I will show off in a couple of seconds. You see, it involves one of these rising platforms. You get onto this platform that goes up. Well, you have to double jump onto it in order to go up, and then you have to jump above that overhang and then do an air dash. It's actually not easy to do on your first try. So I'm going to try it a couple of times, and I can't even really see what platform I'm supposed to go to next. Am I supposed to just blindly jump to the left or something? Oh well, I made it through here anyways. Even if that's not the intended path to take, it's still cool that you can do that. And coming up should be the wall that I'm supposed to break through. You'll notice a lot of X1 enemies, by the way. These gun turrets and the little flamethrowers. Switching to X so that Zero doesn't take any additional damage. I'm kind of worried about his health bar. And here I am double dashing, in case anyone was wondering. It's very difficult to do. So I just decided to damage boost through those guys. So here's what was behind the wall that you need to crush with a drill weapon. It is, of all things, a Dr. Light capsule, which is actually kind of weird because in X5, Zero says, or Dr. Light says, they can't make any power-up parts for Zero, and then Zero's all, well, I don't need any power-ups from you, dude, you do whatever you want. But in Xtreme 2, there were Dr. Light capsules that work for Zero. And this one in particular gives him the half-damage body upgrade, which is the only practical armor upgrade that Zero can get. The head and the legs just allow him to crush certain blocks, and I think the arm just gives him one of the Zero summon abilities from Xtreme 1. Anyways, this was a little bit risky, but with the body armor upgrade, you know, it's very easy to beat these guys because they only do 1 damage, so it's a lot safer. Anyways, destroy those 4 things, and that was actually a pretty mini boss, but whatever. He drops 24 souls, I think. I think each one of those little dots is worth 8 souls. Or it could be 4 souls. Anyways, we're coming up on the boss of the stage. Blast Hornet and to some extent Tunnel RHINO are bosses I would not expect them to pit Zero against. Because Zero tends to excel against slow-moving bosses, and Tunnel RHINO and Blast Hornet, they have lots of ramming attacks. So I'm going to bring out X for the beginning of this fight. Oh, and yeah, very slick editing there. You saw my life bar go up and my lives dropped to 0. I most definitely did lose a life to this guy. Anyways, as you can see, X is actually faring much better against Blast Hornet than Zero would have. I mean, Zero would have to get close to this guy, but maybe that's the reason they made Blast Hornet a little slower than his SNES counterpart. He definitely does seem slower. And like Tunnel RHINO, a lot more orange. Oh, I just casually no-damaged that? I really did no-damage Blast Hornet there. That is very strange. I know the Game Boy Color games are going to be a little easier than the SNES ones, but that was very unexpected. Anyways, that means X gets the weapon instead of Zero. Fortunately, not many of the weapons in this game actually matter because they very quickly become obsolete because of something you can do later on in the game when you have enough DNA souls. We'll talk about that later, but now we have a very weird cutscene between 2 guys who I don't know and will never ever be mentioned because they die at the end of this game anyways. Big time narrative spoilers. Anyways, while they're still talking, I'll get started talking about the next stage. We're going to Wire Sponge's stage next, which is an X2 stage, and it is almost completely unchanged from its SNES counterpart. Which might have you wondering what they did with the X-Hunter doors in this game. Well, in this game they decided to just put the armor upgrades in the X-Hunter doors. Nothing too special. They had to do something with that space anyways, right? Anyways, this stage, as I mentioned, is almost completely the same. Even the heart tank is in the same location, and so is the sub-tank, and the extra life. And there are the weather-changing crystals as well. I don't really know if you can do anything with those. They certainly wouldn't alter the weather because this hardware doesn't have the capacity to pull off the weather effects, so I imagine they would just alter the enemy attacks. It doesn't really seem like something you would want to bother too much with. Anyways, in this area is the oh-so-deadly elevator segment, and if you drop down here, here will be the armor capsule for, I think, the head? No, it is the leg. And of course, it allows you to crush certain blocks. That's all it really does, because Zero already had the air dash. But this is useful for getting to some of X's armor capsules, because you need to crush certain blocks to get to them. So it's good to be able to pick up Zero. You can actually get those armor upgrades for X sooner than you would have been able to if you were playing X's story. Because then he would have to go and get his leg upgrade, or he would have to go and get his head upgrade. Did I just damage an enemy by dashing? If you can slash while dashing, that is actually pretty cool, but I've never really confirmed if you can do that or not. Anyways, moving on with the rest of the stage. We're just slashing through these guys and moving very quickly because of how fast that air dash gets you through the stage. It's a nice air dash, let me tell you. And this is pretty much dead air. Oh, this wasn't in the original version of the stage. We have some floating platform segments that you just air dash over. And we have a second elevator stage. Oh, this definitely wasn't in the SNES version of the stage, actually, and I don't really like it too much. This whole position, sit in one spot and wait for the spikes to pass. Wasn't really a huge fan of that, but I guess it's a little more interesting than just putting an enemy in front of the door. Wire Sponge changed a little bit. I don't know if the bosses changed all that much between the regular game modes and Extreme mode, because that was something that I was wondering about for Extreme 1 as well. But if Extreme mode changes these guys, then Wire Sponge is definitely a little bit different. He also, he does plant those things on the ground, but only the last one planted a thing on the ground. Oh well. Anyways, Wire Sponge is a little bit slower than his SNES counterparts, so defeating him is simply a matter of not getting hit too much, as is every boss battle in the game. What am I thinking? When he gets angry, that's when things get a little bit different, because now all of the lightning bolts are aimed at you. Easy to sidestep them by just walking, unless you miscalculate the number of bolts and get hit like I did. Now here's the very, very annoying part. He does the desperation move so much more often than he used to. Like, or at least it feels that way. If it's random, whatever attack he chooses, then it feels like there's a greater chance of the desperation move coming up than normal. Also, since I just switched characters there, I should mention, you can only switch characters if you are not in invincibility frames. They don't want you to be able to do that, I guess. So we've got Zero's screen clearing attack, which is a lightning bolt that covers the entire area that you're in. And now we're moving on to one of the stages that I really, really don't like in this game, which is Overdrive Ostrich. You remember how X5 had that really awful and annoying Ride Chaser segment in Squid Adler stage? Well, they decided to put one in Overdrive Ostrich, and it's really awful. I don't really know why I find this so annoying, but it did turn out to be very annoying. You have to do the wheelie move in order to crush through certain walls, and fortunately, that segment, it ended pretty quickly and wasn't that annoying, but there's another one coming up that is way, way worse. And also we have these sand tornadoes. These actually kill you in one hit, so don't accidentally dash into them is all I can really say about them. And you have to wait for them to come down so you can pass over them, and you don't want to move too quickly because you might just ram into the next one. It's a really annoying level gimmick, and I really wish they had just gone with something a little more overdrivey, I guess. Overdrivey, that's not even a word. I'm losing it. I'm losing it talking about my least favorite stage. This is another part of it that really annoys me, because you have to climb up these towers and drop down them without getting hit by the sand towers. And then we have the armor upgrade, which you have only one real chance to get. You have to dash jump off of that ladder and climb this ladder up to the armor capsule. If you fall and you miss the ladder, you do not get another chance at it unless you enter the stage again. Fortunately, it's before the really awful Ride Chaser segment, so at least you can pick it up here and now. And again, like with the foot part, it's useful for getting some of X's armor capsules, even though you're playing as Zero. Right, so moving on, here's the really, really bad Ride Chaser segment. And again, I make this look easier than it probably is. It looks like you just have to make these jumps, and then something like that happens. What exactly did I do wrong there? Well, it took forever and a lot of attempts to make that jump right. Like, it's some kind of really precise pixel-perfect jump, and I don't really know what the deal is. And there's a couple more after it, too. So there's that first jump. And then you have to make this jump as well. That was lucky. The game bailed me out there by allowing me to jump again. And then moving forward through the level, we have something even more annoying than that, if you can believe it. You have to not only jump, but use the wheelie as well. Almost lost my last life there. Fortunately, that's the very end of the stage. We do not have to deal with all of that ever again. We got the armor upgrade. We only really have to come back for the heart tank. But I'm not going to come back for the heart tank because I really don't want to do all of that again. Overdrive Ostrich is very easy to defeat with Zero. He is definitely a boss that Zero excels fighting against. Mostly because, for some reason on Extreme mode, I think the sonic slicers that he shoots out stay on screen for longer, and he stays perfectly still in the air for longer, allowing you to get a lot more saber slashes in on him. Like, look at this. Oh, he just dashed forward that time, but I think here he does the Sonic Slicer move, and then for some reason one of them decides to move very slowly towards you, like that's some kind of a threat. Killing him with X is preferable because the Sonic Slicer is useful if you ever bother to use it. It does still have that screen clearing attack when you charge it. See, that's the thing. Like, there are 4 bosses that are exclusive to Zero's mission unless you are on Extreme mode, but then they went ahead and made weapons for X anyways. I don't really know why they did that. It's so very weird. Alright, moving on to Flame Mammoth, which is another stage that did not change a whole lot, but since there's no Chill Penguin effect to change the stage, like based on if you would play Chill Penguin first or not, it's going to be all lava all the time, and that will cause something annoying to happen later on in the stage. Can't wait for that. Obviously, you can't do that weird glitch where you climb into whatever is spawning those enemies, like in the SNES version. They would have fixed that. So, moving on here. Coming up is the part of the stage where you can get X's arm upgrade if you crush through those blocks. And you might have to have X's leg upgrade because it's the same leg upgrade as X3. But you can actually get up here with 0 if you make a very precise jump. Very, very precise. It's going to take a couple of attempts. So while that's going on, I will talk about the fireball that you saw to your right. That is the new stage gimmick. There are fireballs that come up from the lava and kill you in one hit. A lot of killing you in one hit, it seems. I really don't like that. They really should have just not made it kill you in one hit. Maybe 2 hits would have been alright. But yeah, now that I've successfully climbed up there, X is going to, well, he's going to try and get his arm upgrade if Dr. Light will let him. You can shot 2 charge shots in a row. Did you see the typo? You can shot 2 shots in a row. So this arm upgrade is very much like the X3 Buster upgrade, but I'm going to pick it up anyways because, you know, we can deal with it, I think. There's a way to, oh yeah, you can see that I accidentally clipped into the fireball and lost my last life. So now it's time to see why the arm upgrade is completely useless. We are going to purchase parts finally. And there are 2 parts in particular that I'm looking for. They are Buster Plus 1 and Buster Plus 2. And there are also a couple of other interesting parts you can pick up, like Speed Shot, Saber Plus 1, Saber Extend, I think is also an option. And there are a couple of other junk parts. I'm just going to spend all my souls here. So we are going to equip these as soon as we enter the stage, and you are going to see why the part system is completely broken in Xtreme 2. Buster Plus 1 and Buster Plus 2 both do exactly what they say in the name. They increase the amount of buster damage from your regular tiny little pellet shots by 1 and 2 respectively. So now, your regular buster shots are doing plus 3 damage for a total of 4. They're stronger than charge shots, and they're stronger than the boss weaknesses. Capcom, or whoever developed this. You know, you might want to put just a little bit more of a limitation on these parts, besides having to spend, like, a very small amount of souls compared to how many you're going to get over the course of the game. Like, there are 8 bosses in Extreme Mode, but there are also 4 bosses in, the regular modes, so that's still a good 800, 1,000 souls you're going to get to be able to spend on these things. Maybe that's reason for all of the one-hit kills that seem to be in this game. Very, very strange. I don't know why they did it. But anyways, moving on with the level itself, we're now in the little air segment with all the platforms and stuff. The sub-tank is going to be in the same location that it was in the SNES version. We just have to air dash over here. And I'd also like to point out that this NES, or not NES, 8-bit rendition of Flame Mammoth's theme is actually pretty good. However, for some reason, the themes in this game, the musical themes, they don't loop completely. Like, they don't have the full loop from their SNES counterparts. Like, maybe you notice that, like, you're gonna notice that listening to Volt Catfish's theme later on, actually. It's very jarring. And we have a segment here that's actually much better designed, in my opinion, than the SNES version because of how much more tightly the space is cramped. Not this segment, the previous thing with the compressors. Like, it was actually very much more likely to be caught by the compressors there than in the SNES version. Anyways, we're up to the boss now, and now that we have the supercharged X-Buster, we have just equipped all of those parts. We're pretty much going to beat Flame Mammoth by pelleting him to death. Just use all of your lemons, as the speedrunners call it. Look at this damage. Do you see this damage? Like, what reason is there for me to put any effort into dodging anymore? And you guys might be thinking, well, doesn't this break your rule of using only the Buster against bosses unless it's the rematches? Well, no, because it is the Buster. It's just powered up by stupidly broken power-up parts. I don't even need to use weapons in the game anymore because the Buster is just that good. Oh yeah, I also got Fire Wave, whatever. Same as the SNES version, I'm sure. Anyways, moving on to Neon Tiger, and the Guns N' Roses shout out in the music is still there. However, it does not loop fully, as I've mentioned. Like, take a listen to it if you want to know what I mean. So Neon Tiger has been completely transformed. The stage is nothing like its SNES counterpart. It's got X1 enemies, and there aren't really any of the enemies that were exclusive to this stage in the SNES version. There's ride armor, so we're going to be using that. Here it is, in fact, and we're going to be punching through this. But while I was punching through all of this, I noticed something peculiar. There's no enemies! Why are there no enemies in the stage? Or this part of the stage, anyways. Like, what is supposed to threaten me here? I don't know, but if you dash jump up to here and punch through this block, you can get the heart tank. And then you can just punch through the rest of the stage. And unfortunately, the ride armor ride is over because it cannot fit through that tiny little gap. Yeah, I still wonder about those ride armors because, like, there's just no challenge if you have a ride armor, because nothing threatens its destruction, or threatens it with destruction, rather. So there are a couple of platforms that fall here when you touch them, mainly the parts of the tree branches, and then we have a weird platforming segment that is going to go on for a little while. These are enemies from Storm Eagle stage. I just thought I'd point that out because we have to wait for them to get over here. You know, it's probably sounding like I'm complaining about the stage a lot more than I probably should. Anyways, you need to use the Fire Wave to get through to that capsule, and... oh, that's not the SNES Fire Wave. That's so weird. It's a different weapon entirely in this game. How very strange. So this is the head upgrade. It's completely useless in extreme mode because it only lets you crush certain blocks above you and does nothing extra like in X2 or X3. And I really should not have picked it up because something annoying happens when you pick up all of X's armor upgrades. So skipping one of them is actually highly recommended, and it may as well be the head. If you're on extreme mode, then, you know, you can get to the other armor parts with Zero's armor parts instead. Also, does this look familiar? It kinda looks like Sting Chameleon stage. That's really weird. It's Neon Tiger stage, but it looks like Sting Chameleon has a segment that resembles Sting Chameleon, and you might actually, like, die here because, in spite of the ride armor, it's actually possible to lose it down a pit like I just did. Fortunately, you can dash jump across these spike pits, but I hope you have Zero or the leg upgrade, because if not, then I don't think there's really going to be any way to get across them besides tanking a hit and abusing the invincibility frames. That's actually not good. I said this game was flawed, right? I don't want to spend forever complaining about flaws. So let's just comment about how Neon Tiger is slower, yet just as unpredictable as his SNES counterpart. This is kind of sort of similar to the SNES version, except he's not shooting. Neon Tiger, shoot something. Okay, there we go. He shot something right before he died. Yeah, these bosses aren't exactly putting up much of a fight now that I have that supercharged X-Buster, are they? X is just gonna get all the weapons from now on. What do we even need Zero for anymore? So much for Zero being the Ace Maverick Hunter. X is the real man here. And instead of the Ray Splasher, we get the Ray Claw. I guess that's sort of like Slash Man's weapon from Mega Man 7. But moving on to Launch Octopus. This is another stage where it's very noticeable that the music does not loop like it does in the SNES version. And speaking of Launch Octopus, you might have noticed that Launch Octopus and Flame Mammoth are both bosses from X1 that had Easter eggs related to them. When you use the boomerang cutter on them, you could cut off Launch Octopus's legs, or you could cut off Flame Mammoth's trunk. Now, Boomer Kawunger isn't in this game, so we obviously don't have his weapon, and I haven't really bothered to try this, but I can't help but wonder if the Ray Claw is the weapon that does those things against those bosses, because it makes sense to have some kind of weapon that cuts them up, if they were able to be cut up in the SNES version. Or they might have just, like, not included that Easter egg, because they did not include Armored Armadillo losing his armor when hit with the Electric Spark in Xtreme 1. Right, so I think you need the leg armor in order to get up to that heart tank, but, or at least I think you're intended to need the leg upgrade, but nope, I just jumped up there myself with a pixel-perfect leap. Aren't I impressive? It only took dozens of tries to perfect. Wow, my speaking is having trouble. Alright, so there's that ship you have to destroy in order to get underground to where the heart tank is. Wait, we already got the heart tank. Oh, right, that's where the heart tank would have been originally, but now it's got the armor upgrade. Very interesting changes sometimes. Alright, so maybe you don't even need to destroy that thing, because it doesn't crash through the floor or anything, but we have the same mini-boss as usual. You want to be careful with this guy, because you don't want to be standing on top of him when he is destroyed, because all of his entire body will lose its hit detection, so that will cause you to fall, and if you fall onto the spike bed, you know, that's going to be embarrassing. He also takes a lot more time to actually destroy. I mean, jeez, that took forever for him to play out that animation. Anyways, this is either the leg upgrade or the body. It is the body, so now we take half damage, and I think you get a screen clearing attack along with it, but I don't really know for sure because I never used the thing. I never really used the screen clearing attack in X2 or X3 anyways, so I don't really know for sure. Moving on with the rest of the stage, we're going to have to fight that mini-boss one more time, as soon as we get past all these annoying enemies. You know, I'm willing to bet that there's something on top of that cliff that I failed to jump up to, but it's probably just a sub-tank, because we already have the heart tank and the armor upgrade, so no need to worry about it. At this point, I decided to switch to somebody who at least has an air dash at this point. Wow. It looks like it would have been difficult to get across that spike pit if you were just regular X without Zero or any armors. Then again, you probably could clear it with a double tap dash. I keep forgetting that thing exists because I never bothered doing it. Anyways, just shooting up this guy at the tail, waiting for him to explode. Ah yeah, it's going to take a while for him to explode. Also, I just realized that whenever the enemy drops DNA souls, it's possible for the DNA souls to be a blue color instead of a yellow color, and if it's a blue color, it actually refills weapon energy. I did not know DNA souls could do that. What weapon have I even used in this stage? Maybe since I just got the body upgrade with the screen clearing attack, it's filling that up instead. Alright, launch Octopus. He is the usual. He's not going to be much, because now that we take less damage, it's going to take forever for him to kill us before we kill him. And he has that attack where he drained health in the SNES version, but he does not do it in this version of the game. Kind of unfortunate. That might have made him a little more difficult. Alright, so that's Tiger, Octopus, Mammoth, and is there one other boss that we need to kill before the fortress stages, or are we good to go for the fortress stages now? I don't know, but M Tornado, that is not Launch Octopus's weapon. That's very, very odd. Ah yes, still Volt Catfish left. And obviously there's not going to be a Vile's Factory. The plot isn't going in that direction this time. We're not going to get another Vile Revival until... Vile Revival? That's a funny phrase, Vile Revival. Anyways, we're not getting another Vile Revival until X8, unfortunately. So that's a long ways off, in case you wanted to see your precious Vile Revival again. I am way too amused by my own words. Anyways, the stage actually has some similarities to Toxic Seahorse, because you have to climb up this waterfall here. Fortunately, it's not toxic, otherwise X would have had to spend a lot more time cleaning that off of his metal exterior. Anyways, the armor for this stage is very easy to get. You just have to climb up the waterfall. Coming up in just a minute after I get past all of these X1 bats. I don't know why they decided X1 bats. See, the placement of that life energy capsule makes me think of Toxic Seahorse. So that's a very weird way to mishmash the stages. So here we finally have the leg upgrade, and it's finally time to talk about the annoying thing that happens when you have all the armor upgrades. Now, those of you who played X5 might remember that when you equip parts onto X, normal X without any armors can equip up to 4 parts, but X with a full armor can only equip 2. And they've transferred that into this game. So when you get the 4th and final armor upgrade for X, he is restricted to only 2 armor upgrade parts, excuse me. So I'm going to have to make them the parts that supercharge the regular Buster Shots. And you know, it's kind of pointless to do that, because anybody who wanted to collect the armor pieces but keep 4 parts on X could just as easily skip one of the capsules. It's really not that big a loss. So yeah, this is the annoying gimmick that we're going to have to deal with, and it's water that pushes you back instead of just outright killing you, which it probably should have done, considering that, you know, it just killed me in an instant there. I really don't like this particular gimmick. It was fine in Tunnel RHINO, but when you have things like this, it's going to create a lot of stop-and-go gameplay. Or you could just air dash, brute force your way through it. Of course, I had to wait here because it kept pushing me into the wall. And, is the boss not that far behind? That's a weird position to put the boss doors. Okay, so it's not the boss. Oh, I see. See, before the water just pushed you, but now it's electrocuted and will kill you in one hit. Isn't that precious? Yeah, I don't think it's very precious at all, really. And look what they did here. They put the heart tank in a place where you'd likely have to lose one of your lives to get to it, assuming you can get into that little space and out before the water comes back to kill you. And in this case, I was not quick enough, and oops, I was just barely not quick enough to get out of there before dying. Luckily, I've got 1 life left. May have to take a game over at some point in order to get my 3 lives back, because they still haven't thought maybe we should start the player off with 3 lives in every stage instead of whatever they had from the previous stage. I'm rambling quite a lot. But yeah, the use of instant death traps in Xtreme 2 is kind of, well, extreme. There, I made the pun. Yeah. So like in X3, you have that upwards dash, which is useful in a couple of spots. And I'm out of things to talk about because I'm just repeating this part of the stage. So X is walking, and there's another set of boss doors. There's a lot of boss doors for some reason. So here's a checkpoint. Checkpoints work exactly like in Xtreme 1, by the way. And we have a short outdoor segment before the real boss doors. Finally, we get to fight Volt Catfish. Hopefully I can kill him in 1 life, but with all these heart tanks and body upgrades, you know, it would be a darn shame if I actually lost a life to this guy. No, I didn't lose a life to this guy. I'm not, like, foreshadowing that I lost a life to this guy. Because I didn't. Anyways, he's pretty similar to X3. And with that, we are ready for the Fortress stages, where there's going to be a lot more Buster abuse, and don't worry, Zero gets the spotlight for one last time at the end of the game. Don't you worry about that. Alright, so you have to play through these Fortress stages 2 times before you've unlocked Extreme Mode, unless you paid for Extreme Mode. And you also get the Tri-Thunder, which is not the Thunder Triad from X3, it's a much weaker version. I don't really know why they couldn't just recreate all of the weapons from X3 if they were going to go to such lengths. Maybe they thought doing something different with the weapons would have been fine, but most of them are inferior versions anyways. At least from what I've seen. I use them so rarely. Anyways, yes, I do in fact take a game over. So, we have the second Sigma stage from Mega Man X1. And it has the X2 X-Hunter bass theme, which, you know, that's nice. I like this song, but I also like the song from X1. They could have put that here instead. It would have been nice, too. Anyways, not quite the same as the original version, but with the leg upgrade, it's actually very easy to climb this vertical segment. And also, I should mention that even if you are not on Extreme Mode, in the Fortress levels you have access to both characters, because by this point in the story, both characters have reunited. Whatever character you weren't playing as will have all of their armors, heart tanks, and sub-tanks. So just in case you're maybe struggling with the other character, you can at least switch to the other character and like have a much easier time because you've got all the armor and upgrades now. Anyways, just some more dashing past some death pits, and there's something of a split path here. I've never really gone up the right side because it's much easier to go up the left side. At least from how it looks. It looks much harder to dodge things on the right side there. And we have some laser traps and some platforming segments that you can air dash over. A lot of opportunities to skip things with the air dash. And now we are up to the boss. If I remember right, the boss for the first Fortress stage is actually the robot dog that Sigma had. And I'm right. Very interesting that they would put him here, considering he was absent from Extreme 1. But anyways, just like all the other bosses so far, we're just going to shoot him up a bunch with our supercharged X-Buster. Oh, God. Did you see how he was firing over my head over and over again like that? Guys, you've got to make the player move if you want it to be a challenge. Jeez. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of this is going to be harder for players who aren't super skilled ex-veterans like I am. But, jeez. Anyways, we've saved up some DNA souls, so I decided to purchase the last part for 0, and that's all the parts we had access to. There's a couple more, but again, I'm pretty sure that spent souls don't count towards unlocking those parts. Anyways, you can take a very big leap of faith and come out safely at the end here. And those electric sparks beneath 0, this is a completely new stage as far as I see. Those electric sparks beneath that platform kill you instantly, and they're going to abuse them quite a lot because we have a section here with floating platforms and walls with those electric sparks that kill you in one hit. Fortunately, you can use the air dash to make it much easier on yourself, especially in this segment where you have to make several leaps of faith. You know, I'm pretty sure I mentioned in the Extreme 1 video that this game pulls an X6. We're actually not going to see it because it's part of a character-exclusive path, but I think it's really annoying to have lots of leaps of faith like that. Still, it's not as if this stage is the most horrible thing in the world. Yet. This part is pretty annoying with the Rainy Turtleoid platforms. I remember them from Rainy Turtleoid's stage, but they were all over X6. It feels like Extreme 2 actually threw a bunch of elements from all over the X series into a blender, even though half those games hadn't even come out yet. You've got stages from X1, 2, and 3, you've got Zero who plays like X4, the part system from X5, and we have some platform types from X6, and we have character switching a la X7 and X8. So we have some rising lava, that's not too bad, I can handle this pretty decently. I could probably just tank damage through all of this too, because like I'm pretty sure the lava only does 1 damage. It's going to damage the video quality more than it is going to damage X. And they actually made those rotating wall enemies actually do something useful. Instead of just blocking your path, they can actually shoot at you, and you'll have to shoot at them to advance past an area with rising lava. Alright, so this boss is really, really awful, if I am remembering correctly. This boss is, for some reason, a two-faced tank that appears nowhere else in the game, and nowhere else in the X series. Good on them to create their own unique boss, but this is a seriously annoying fight. And, you know, at this point you would have both characters, so the fact that you have to push it back with Zero's saber is not like the worst thing in the world, because you're always going to have Zero. But really, look how big all of its hitboxes are. I actually decided to bring out a weapon to see if that would do extra damage, but look at this, I'm backed into the corner, I have to actually use my sub-tanks. At least I was able to actually save them up. And like, all of that not having to use any sub-tanks throughout the rest of the game allowed me to save them up. But yeah, that was annoying. You have to destroy both faces. It's very easy with the supercharged X-Buster. Just make sure it doesn't pin you into the wall. That boss is seriously annoying to learn. I handled it just fine, but remember I had to use like 2 sub-tanks. One was full, the other was like only up to a small bit full, but whatever. Not my favorite stage, not my favorite boss. Unfortunately, this stage is going to get a lot more difficult. Yeah, you're the strongest. You're the strongest for sure. So strong that X beats you off screen. Anyways, starting off here. The gimmick of this stage is that there is another path split based on what character you're playing as. X and Zero both have to deal with different individual bosses and different individual stage segments. X's is completely awful, and is that X6 throwback that I alluded to in the Extreme 1 video. Like, I'm pretty sure if you go in without X's leg upgrade, then he cannot clear the stage. The gaps will be too big, and he will just get killed by a wave of instant death water like we had back in Volt Catfish's stage. So naturally I'm going to play the Zero version instead, and the Zero version is probably not much better, but it's more consistent, I would say, than the X version. And I know I'm getting into my complain mode, but, you know, it's kind of unfortunate that Extreme 2 has to end this way, because Overdrive Ostrich aside, up until this point, it was actually doing pretty well with all of the cool, unique stuff that was in it compared to Xtreme 1. Definitely still a better game than Xtreme 1, I would say, but, like, they still have a couple of X6-style moments, and that's not cool. Also, this cutscene only plays for Zero. Iris does not contact X. Knowing who Iris is, that makes quite a lot of sense. Ah, Iris, what are we fighting for? What are we fighting for indeed? You know, I've been checking out this kind of mobile Mega Man game that they have called Mega Man Xtreme, and they recently released a skin for Iris that puts her in a bikini. And, like, that really weirded me out. Not that I'm against characters in bikinis, but Iris is a robot. I just want to remind everybody that she's a robot. Like, what is putting her in a bikini going to do for her? Oh, who knows? Like, Reploids and all of that, weird stuff that they get into later on. Like, how can Reploids be romantic towards one another? I know they've got human emotions. You know what? Love is about more than procreation, so I'm going to just drop the subject completely. I should really not be talking about it. You want to dash over that platform, because if you touch it, then it's going to send you into that electrified wall. And this part is annoying. You have to make a very specific fall towards the boss doors. And this boss is another one that's kind of annoying to deal with. Hey, check it out. That background is from X4. Anyways, X has to deal with a boss called Burkana, who can reverse his controls and make spikes appear on the walls whenever she wants. I assume it's a she. And meanwhile, Zero has to deal with Gareth. Looks like Zero's at a weapon triangle disadvantage. Spears versus swords. Not good. So yeah, the reason this is annoying for the most part is because of this move right here, where he jumps into the sky and goes full Final Fantasy Dragoon, drops a bunch of spears. Yeah. The most annoying thing about that move isn't how difficult it is to dodge, because it's really not difficult to dodge at all. It's because he can do it as many times as he wants, and there's no way to hit him while he's doing it. You have to just go over to him and hit him while he's jumping upwards. Like, eventually, for me, for the most part, he usually just goes into this phase where he does nothing but that move over and over. But until that time, you can very easily just go behind him and jump slash at him. If you force him to use his shield to block, you can actually hit his spears back at him. I'm not really sure how that works, but it's cool when you can pull it off. And now we have to deal with the spear throwing attack. He's used it one time so far, and I am going to keep count. And here he goes again. This is his second time using it. Yeah, now you see why I don't like this boss so much. But I'll take this guy over having your controls reversed and having spikes appear on the walls whenever you want. Jeez, it sounds like Spiked Wallman. I think Burkana is taking a cue from alternate universe Dr. Wily, where he actually wins. Jeez, how many times is that so far? I think that's his 5th use of that attack. You see why I don't like this guy? Or either of these bosses at all? Oh boy, oh boy. Don't worry, this will eventually end. I do eventually beat him. Eventually. Like, you can't even hit him from the front while he's in the air. You have to go behind him. So, yeah. He did jump forward a little bit, so at least he actually let me hit him. But then he goes right back into this attack for like the 8th time. And it's so easy to dodge too. You just have to move left and right. And then eventually I was going to go full ham and just slash at him like a maniac, but that probably would have taken my last hit. And look how annoying this is. He's left with 1 health. I still have to hit him one more time. I can't even switch to X because he's busy in another part of the stage. So when you beat one of these two guys, Gareth or Burkana, they will, that's where the game ends for the individual story modes for X and Zero. But because we're on Extreme mode, there's one more stage after it. Guess who's going to be the boss? Ah, yes, it's Sigma once again. Actually, his face was on the stage select screen the entire time, I think. So if you didn't see this coming, then I don't know what I don't know what you were expecting. So, yep, Sigma's back again. Like, You know, it would have been nice if for once it wasn't Sigma and it was just two annoying idiots, because, you know, this series desperately needs a game where there is no Sigma, and it's so rare to see that happen. Like, it finally happened with Command Mission, but that was an RPG, which was a very weird game, even though I did like it actually quite a lot. So moving on, the final stage of the game is just some floating across platforms, climbing up a wall with spikes, and then some more platforming, and everyone's favorite part of any X game, boss rematches. At least we get to fill our sub-tanks. And this is going to go by rather quickly, because I need I remind you that we have the supercharged X-Buster. I'm pretty sure this does nothing to the individual weapons, so I won't even use weaknesses here. Look at how quickly that went by, and as soon as it's over with, there will be some life refills waiting for us. And, I don't think we even need to fill our sub-tanks. Well, we're going to have to play a little bit skillfully if we want to fill our sub-tanks, and I keep saying we for some reason, even though I'm the one playing this. Maybe, like, past me, who was actually playing and recording, and current me are two different people, I suppose. Yeah, I have nothing to say about these boss ring matches. I'm just going to shoot them up with a buster. What do I even talk about here? I guess I could say what game I'm going to do next. I have not played X4 in quite a long time, so if I want to do that next, it is probably going to end up being segmented like the X3 playthrough was, and probably the rest of the games are going to be segmented like that, unless I decide to just not do all of the bosses in X5, because, or in X6, because those two games let you skip to the end. For some reason, I've never understood why they let you do that. It seems kind of a shame to just let the players skip everything and go straight to the end. Which is why I'm a little bit weirded out that Xtreme 2 lets you purchase the boss battles mode. Oh yeah, I guess I could talk about that. The boss battles mode in Xtreme 2 does one thing that's interesting. It is basically a time attack where you fight the 8 Mavericks and record your best time. But the interesting thing is, it actually lets you fight the Xtreme 1 bosses, Chill Penguin and the like. Even though you're in Xtreme 2 and have Xtreme 2 weapons, this allows Zero to fight the Xtreme 1 bosses, but there's one tiny little problem. You're allowed to equip as many parts as you want, so you can just use the Buster Plus parts and destroy them the same way I'm destroying these guys. It might be interesting to see what a speedrun of the boss battles mode looks like, but you could probably just look up a task and be satisfied with that. I mean, geez, you know, the Buster Plus parts were actually a really huge mistake in my opinion, because they allow you to trivialize so much about these battles. At least with Zero, even if you have Saber Plus 1 equipped, which increases his Saber power by 1 up to a total of 4, at least you still have to get close to the enemy and slash at them, which probably means I should have been playing as Zero. For Xtreme 2 anyways. You know, this is like X Gang back at Zero for X5, because in X5, Zero is overpowered. Like, just one of his techniques, and you are basically unkillable. You'll destroy the bosses before they have any hope of destroying you. But I guess you do have to dodge a little bit in X5 as well. Which is why I'm probably going to play... Like, if I go on to X4 and X5, I'm probably going to do X4 with Zero exclusively, because you can't switch characters in X4. And I'll probably do X5 with X only, because I want to preserve some semblance of difficulty, even though it is X5, and, it can be a little annoying if you don't use Zero to blitz through certain sections of the game. Anyways, there's only one refight left. It's Launch Octopus. Launch Octopus sounds like a seafood dish, doesn't it? Like, lunch octopus, maybe? Wow, I really am out of things to say if I'm resorting to that kind of commentary. Well, he decided to fire his torpedoes over and over, and he's down. I wonder if the M-Tornado you get from him is that tornado move that he does, where he sucks health out of you. I guess that'd be interesting to see, even if it would be a clone of Storm Tornado. Like, that would be a really weird inclusion. Alright, so just have to shoot past a few more enemies, and then we will have nothing but the final boss. And as you can imagine, the first form is going to be what was he called? Neo Sigma? Or Kaiser Sigma was X3, so Neo Sigma, the guy with the Wolverine claws, is going to be our first form for this final boss. Like, I really don't know why he constantly has that really weird looking grin in all of his portraits, but anyways, I just decided to slash at him a bunch with Zero, like tank some hits, just like get close to killing him as quickly as possible, and then finish him off with X. This is exactly the same as the X2 version of the fight, so nothing interesting going on. However, the final form is completely new, and like, thank goodness, they finally made a boss that actually requires the use of both characters. So the way this fight works is that you have to shoot at that giant head thing in the center there, either with fully charged shots or saber slashes. Or not fully charged shots, just the regular Buster charged shot. Like, not the upgraded one. And then when the image of Sigma appears, you have to just attack that for as much damage as you can get in before he goes back to attacking again. Now, the reason this requires both characters is that at some point, Sigma changes the color of his armor. When it's bright red, only Zero can damage him, and when it's bright blue, only X can damage him. And he hasn't done that quite yet for some reason. Oh, there he is. Now he's red and only Zero can damage him, so you just jump and slash, jump and slash. You know, okay, even though this requires both characters, it's seriously easy. Like, he has a couple of hard-to-avoid attacks like this. You might have to be extra careful around those, especially with Zero, considering that if you don't have the armor for him, then he's going to be taking a lot of damage. But yeah, this is far from the most difficult thing in the world, especially considering that you might have already filled up your sub-tanks in the boss rematch room. So yeah, I'm not sure if you need the leg upgrade to get up to his head in order to shoot at it with X, but it helps. Otherwise, it's actually a bit difficult to aim your shot. And if you charge up with the arm upgrade, then you are going to not want to fire level with him. Instead, fire from below, because the fully charged shot goes diagonally, and it was seriously annoying to have to relearn that. I'm not even sure whether regular Buster shots do nothing to him, but whatever. He's almost dead now, and I have to switch back to Zero, which means I'm probably going to have to use another sub-tank in order to recover my health after one thing hits me. Almost there. Oh no, sub-tank needed. Okay, he's gone. And that is Xtreme 2 completed. I actually like Xtreme 2. It's pretty fun, except for Overdrive Ostrich stages. And the stages towards the end and bosses can be very, very painful and difficult to learn. But hey, you know, what final bosses weren't difficult to learn, I suppose. So yeah, that's Xtreme 2, and now there's nothing left for the X series except to move on to X4 in the future if I ever get to that. I will have to relearn Zero's moves for X4. I've watched a couple speedruns of it, and I know a couple tricks, but I've been out of practice for so long, I haven't played the... Well, actually, I did replay X5 in order to play a mod of it that actually fixes up some of its problems, and X6 has a similar mod, so maybe I'll think about playing those. The only mod for X4 is an undub, which, why would you want to change the glorious voice acting of X4, am I right? But now we've unlocked boss attack, and that's it for Xtreme 2. See you next time, everybody.